Why does this seem wrong? I'm going to sleep now. Okay, so we're going to be replacing this CV boot on this car. Normally a car of this age, we have about 40,000 miles, wouldn't be bad or broken, but because our vehicle has been beat to death, we've put it through a little bit of torture, this axle boot is cracked. So we have had some grease leaking for a little while. We're going to be replacing that to address this issue. But this could be something that you have an experience on vehicles of any age. Inner axle boots are less of a big deal as far as them being bad. Outer ones will sling grease everywhere, and this joint has a lot more flex to it, so this will likely cause more damage if it is bad. So you don't want to let this thing go, because if you do not replace it, eventually you need to replace the entire axle, which will result in clicking noise while you're driving. So oftentimes on some older cars, you might want to do something where you replace the entire axle if there are cheaper aftermarket ones available. On newer cars like this axle probably doesn't have anything aftermarket available, and a new one is going to be significantly more expensive than just a boot. So we're gonna be replacing a boot today. Let's get dirty. Stop. What you're about to witness is a lot of struggling for me. Now, before you watch that struggling and enjoy my pain, let me tell you a story. This All-Track was purchased as a salvage title car. It was crashed on the passenger side of the vehicle. Now, at the time that we purchased the vehicle, it had a bent axle. Now, because the axle was bent, we had to get it replaced. At the time, this part was on back order. So I did some sleuthing and digging to see if there were any other options we were looking at, which could have been things like Golf R axles. What I eventually figured out was that newer All-Tracks had a different part number axle in them. I compared all of the different components in the vehicle, including control arm lengths, hubs, to make sure all the hub splines were the same on the transmission side, the transmission components, everything lined up. Everything pointed to the newer axle, which was available, would work for the vehicle. So I ordered that one for the vehicle, which was effective and did work. No problems with it. Fast forward to today, where you're watching this video. At the time, this is now a year later, I didn't remember that we had replaced this axle with a different part number because I don't remember anything anymore. Because of that, we went through this process. I spent about 2 hours struggling to try to get that clamp on until I surrendered for the evening. We put a stub axle that we had in it into the hub, and we pushed the car outside. There were part number supersessions with the original CV boot that should have been for the vehicle, which made me think that there may have been an issue with Volkswagen's part number supersession. It led me to realizing and remembering we had replaced this axle, and then I remembered what I had done. So, enjoy my pain. Now, most people are gonna think in this circumstance, oh, this is definitely the wrong thing. But it's not. This reminds me of Talladega Nights when they're taking the knife to try to get the other knife out.
We'll use this knife to pry it out. We'll pull it out.
Now we got two.
No. Just don't think about it.
We're going down a bad path.
All right, Nathan, come here for a sec. I think you can help me.
How is that possible?
Is it Audi USA? What's the website?
Well, this is saying that it only fits 3.0 liters.
Again, I don't trust that.
But it's from their website.
Would you like me to prove to you that it's correct? Go get the van on the All-Track. I didn't remember that we had replaced this axle with a different part number because I don't remember anything anymore.
Oh. Mm-hmm. He's using vice grips and a quarter.
Yeah, it's not gonna stay. Really all I need to do is get far enough that...
You think it's just a little too tight, right? Yeah, I think it needs to be tight, but...
It needs to be really tight though. I know why you think that it's too tight, but it's actually not that tight. This actually isn't that helpful for me, this quarter trick. I thought it was the money. Ow, fuck me, ow. Ugh. You squeeze it in a weird way. You have to kind of wrap your fingers like this and squeeze it together.
Okay, but then I'm gonna block the camera.
I don't give a f. Do you think I give a living f about the camera right now?
Maybe a little bit of a...
No, I don't. I literally don't care. They've seen what we've been trying to do. If we don't have enough footage of what we're trying to do by now, we should just scrap the video.
Oh, dude, it's so close. It's so close, but I think I might break this screwdriver. So what if I come with a screwdriver from here and put all my pressure on that?
That may be what we need, but you're gonna stab me. You're gonna need to get rid of that camera, dude.
It's good.
Yeah. Yeah, see, it's not.
It doesn't even seem close. They're barking at somebody else.
Dog.
They don't do that during the day, though. It's only at night.
Well, I mean, they're dogs, so.
Well, she's a guy, so.
Yeah, this isn't gonna work at all. Okay, so we're gonna start by cutting off these clamps. These are squeeze clamps, 1-time use, and we're just gonna cut them off like so. And obviously we have our axle and the vise here. This is definitely add vise and a vise. Put your axle in a vise. Otherwise you're probably gonna struggle with this thing flapping around all over the place while you're trying to take the CV boot off. Pretty much all CV boots are gonna come with new clamps. If they don't, then you can try to reuse these. They're not very easy to reuse, which is why I wouldn't recommend it. There's one. Bing!
Whoa.
That's like a spittoon. Okay, so our inner clamp is off and we're gonna pull that off. Now, this is where things are gonna get real messy real quick. So I am going to take some rags to show you what we're about to do. We're gonna pull back this axle boot, like so. Now, I'm gonna slide that back, get this goop off, make sure it doesn't drip all over our floor. As you can see, it's delicious. Now, you're gonna have to put new grease in there. I would recommend not going crazy with drying out the outer joint, but I'm just trying to get it so it doesn't goop all over the place. Okay, so here is your outer joint. If you look, there are your balls that go all the way around. This is the shaft itself, and it splines in, much like this axle does, to the hub. Now, the only thing holding this in is a circlip in there. You have to remove this. Now, normally you would have a slide hammer from the factory that would allow you to pop this thing off. You're not gonna have that. I'm gonna use a makeshift one that I just made just now to make this possible, because we have different slide hammers, not with the correct adapters, but I made some stuff work that will work for this. The way that you're gonna wanna do this is to hammer this off. Now you can take a chisel or a screwdriver and go on the backside here of this hub and hammer down to try to get that off. So I'm gonna show you what that looks like. So we have made this tool that should allow us to slide hammer this off, which will be a little bit easier than hammering for a long time and less likely to cause any damage. Wow, this thing is not coming off. It's not working. I built a tool for 30 minutes, which didn't work for shit. And then I hammered it off anyway, because I was gonna say, hey, it's way easier with a tool, but you could hammer it off as an option. Turns out, waste 30 minutes building a tool and just hammer it off anyway. And the old boot will just slide up and over like so. Oh, maybe it is broken. Oh. So now that we have it cleaned up, you can see this is the clip that we were trying to get past. And going back on is super easy. All you do is have to hammer past it. But that's what you're hammering it past to get it off. Since this axle boot came with a new spring clamp, we're gonna pop this guy off. And obviously you can be much less nice with the one you're taking off. And I can take it off like that. This one I'd recommend just kind of slide it on and then work it down. There we go. 2 clamps, and then our boot, you put on the small clamp first, because otherwise you're not gonna be able to get that on. Put that guy on, and then you can put this guy on. The hard part is getting this part of the boot over this shaft again. So that's the easy part. You can proceed with putting this on, and it's gonna spline only one way. So all you do is kind of sit it on there, make sure you're splined on there all the way, and the easiest way to do that is you can kind of turn it to see left to right to see if it'll allow it, and then you can just hammer this thing in place. So we're gonna do that. I'm gonna hammer on this plate here so that we can avoid any damage. That's it. I'm gonna check it again just to make sure it's seated all the way, but I'm pretty sure she's on. All right, so we're ready to get started. So this is our grease. We've cut it open. I'm just gonna squeeze this. So we're just gonna try to squeeze as much of that out as possible, and then we'll put that in place. I am going to try not make a mess everywhere. So I'm gonna slide this up and pop it over. Now the easy part is getting the tail end of this over the ribs. That part is the simple part. The tough part is getting this part with the clamp over top. So something that some people do is they actually unsnap this clamp like that, which all you do is you see it kind of has a kind of a hook. Some people will do that to allow you to pop this over and then try to snap that on later. I can tell you, no matter how you do it, it's not easy. So one way or the other, this is not gonna be a simple process.
Okay, so this is where the DIY turned into struggling, and everything you see after this is the following day when we ordered the correct boot.
Now we can put our new boot and our new clamp. This outer clamp was about 6 millimeters bigger, which makes sense why we had so much trouble. Inners of these actually have different linings on them. So if you were to compare the two, this one has kind of one line, one big rib in there, and this one has kind of 3 smaller ribs in it, which if we tried this one even with the bigger clamp, who knows how well that would actually bite on to the way this joint is designed, because it's not designed for this one. And I'm gonna completely empty what was included with these boots into this thing. Now we are all set, and look at that, it goes right on. Didn't even, no struggle at all, 0. It's unstruggled. Okay, now I'm gonna clean up this area. So I'm gonna go a little bit past this ribbed area and clean all that off, because I wanna make sure that when I put this clamp down on that ribbed area, it bites as much as possible, and that means not a lot of grease there. So I like to try to make sure the mating surfaces that I'm dealing with have as little grease on them as possible so that they get a good seal. And the inner one's not as much of a big deal as the outer one because it doesn't have the same kind of tension on it. So tightening this requires this special tool, and it goes in here like so, and then you're gonna squeeze it down. So take a look at this one and you'll watch it start the process of tightening down. If you look right here on this special tool, there's actually gives you the ability to put a 1/2-inch socket or ratchet in there and tighten that and use extra leverage. So we're gonna do that and get this thing tight. Okay, I'm gonna make sure we have this inner one on the ribs where it's supposed to go, and then I'm just gonna tighten this one up. Same as we did that outer one, nothing different at all. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope this is a good lesson as to why when you do things like what I did is something that when you start mixing parts that didn't originally come in vehicles and then you start looking for parts to replace them, it can get really difficult. So what you would do in that circumstance, you'd have to be looking at the axle, a part number on the axle to try to see if you can find the CV for that specific axle. But again, we have the resources to figure things like this out. They're often very difficult to figure out, even for me, because it's hard to know whether it's just difficult to install or it's something that's actually wrong with it. So take that lesson from me and just wait for the right parts. If you'd like to see how we got to where we started in this video with the axle out of the vehicle, check out our wheel bearing video. We actually showed the process of removing the wheel hub and the process to actually remove the axle from the car. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more like it.